So we have the authentication microservice connected to the broker service, and we're pretty sure that things are going to work. They usually don't first try, but we'll find out shortly. But our next step is to go over to the front end and open up the command folder and find the templates folder and open up test page go HTML. And of course, we're going to want to add a button here and some JavaScript to try things out. So let's go up here and I'll duplicate this line, the broker button line, and I'll change its ID to auth broker btn. And I will change this to, instead of saying test broker, test auth. Okay? And then down here, we'll duplicate this line, line 36, and change it to auth broker button. And make the get element by ID auth broker button. Like that. And now, of course, we're going to want to add a listener. So to save some time, I'll copy all of this and paste it right above it. And then I'll modify it as necessary. So this becomes auth broker button. And we need to change this constant. So let's get rid of this. Just delete it entirely. And instead I'll say const payload. And that will be equal to, and I'll close my curly brackets so I don't forget. What we want to put in here is an action, because we're expecting that on the back end, and the action will be auth. And then we want auth, which is the data we're passing, and that is also JavaScript or JSON, and it has to have two fields, email, and that will be, I'll just put in admin@example.com, because I know that exists in the database. And then for password, I'll put the correct password. I think this is what I used. Again, I'm going to find out shortly. So we have that. Now, I'll add some headers. So const headers, and that will be equal to a new headers. And I'll say headers.append, and append the correct content type. And we're sending JSON, so the content type is application/JSON. Now I have a payload and some headers. Now I'll declare a const body, and it's going to be equal to, inside of this, method, and that'll be post, body, and we'll just json.stringify payload, and headers becomes headers. Okay, now we're going to change this URL from just localhost 8080 to add a /handle at the end. And we'll change this that just says empty post request. We can actually send what or show what we're sending. So we'll say json.stringify, and we'll stringify payload with undefined as the second parameter and 4. So it's nicely spaced. And received can stay the same. If we have an error, then we can actually put the message in here this time. Output, and we have a reference to that back at the top of this script section, dot inner HTML is equal to, actually we'll do plus equal to, and I'll use a JavaScript template, var strong error, and close the strong. And then I'll just put $, and then in curly brackets, data.message. And close off my backticks and semicolon. And here we have output.innerHTML, and that should be sufficient for that. Okay, let's give this a try. So I'm going to open my console and make sure I'm in the project folder, and I'll say make up_build, which should rebuild my Docker images, hopefully. Okay, they're up and running. Now I'll type make start to start the front end. So everything seems to be running. Let's go to our web browser and try this out. So I'll open the JavaScript console just in case we have something wrong here. I'll go to the console and go to localhost. Okay, let's test the broker first to make sure that still works. That looks good. Now let's test auth. And things almost never work correctly the first try. So I'm not going to be too disappointed if there's an error, but let's see what happens. Window fetch, head or get request cannot have a body. Let's just try this again. Reload the whole screen and test auth. So window.fetch, head or get request cannot have a body. Let's see what we got wrong. Back to Visual Studio Code. It looks like a front-end mistake, so that's the first problem we have to deal with. And we misspelled method. M-E-T-H-O-D. Okay, let's go reload it. And try that again. And that looks good. It actually worked. One little typographical error. That's not bad. Now let's go back and give it the wrong password. So we'll find this, and instead of saying very secret, I'll put an exclamation at the end. And come back here and reload this page and test auth. Error calling auth service. May not be exactly the one that I want, but it is an error that I have there. So that looks very promising. Okay, now this is a good start. And of course, we'll be doing more with this later on in the course. But for right now, it seems that we've successfully updated the front end. We've made the broker accept a standard form of JSON, and we've had the broker successfully call the authentication service, get a response, and send some data back to us. And again, this error message may not be exactly what I want, but it is sufficient for our purposes at the moment. Okay, let's move on.